originally Chicago, left Chicago when I was 8, and my family moved to Houston. I was in Houston until 1983, and then we came to Dallas, and I've been in Richardson since 1983. So a while. I have always created. I never really thought of it as artwork. I always just did stuff, and I was always doing stuff, mainly three-dimensional. My parents' house was full of the things that I created. I was in school for business degrees, and when I went back, was ready to go back to school and finish a master's when my youngest child was old enough. I started looking at MBA programs, and my husband said, "What about art?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" I looked into a Master of Art program and was told that I had been out of school long enough that I would need to go back for a bachelor's and pick up some courses. And being 40 years old with 3 young kids, I just couldn't see that. So I started taking some glass classes and pottery classes and figurative sculpture classes, and making things to give as gifts, and people started buying from me to give as gifts, and that's how I got started.
What can you tell us about your involvement with the Texas Jewish Arts Association, and what does it mean to you?
I've been involved since the very beginning. I was one of the founders. I saw a need for a Jewish group, for an artists group for Jewish artists. I realized that I didn't know many of the artists who I didn't know they were Jewish. I was involved with Texas Sculpture Association for many, many years, and they would have their show openings on Shabbat and on Erev Yom Kippur and the first night of Pesach. And I realized we needed another organization where we didn't have to make decisions like that, where people, Jews, were welcome, and they didn't have to bend their religious rules, their strictures, in order to attend the openings. They could come to receptions and know that they could eat the food. And I was involved in organizing the group. There were 7 of us to begin with, and I was not ready to take on the presidency because I had held the presidency of Texas Sculpture Association only a few years before that. So I took on treasurer and membership chair, and did that for 4 years. And when Veronique Jonas, who was president, the first president, was ready to resign, I took over as president. So I have just completed my 4th year as president, and I agreed to a 2nd term, so I have 2 more years to go. Primary medium is glass, predominantly fused glass and some stained glass, and I teach both. I was drawn to it when I was looking for art classes to take instead of going to school for a Master of Arts. And I found a stained glass studio, and I started taking that class, and it was it was fabulous. Being able to work with the glass and control it and grind it and shape it. And glass is just, it's beautiful. It has a luminescence and it shines and it reflects and refracts light. Also, while I was taking pottery classes, I came across a woman who was trying to teach fused glass. And in the early 90s, fused glass was a very, very new technique. And she was, she taught it using the old pottery kilns at the Craft Guild. Everything came out ruined, but I was absolutely hooked. And she helped me purchase my first kiln. And I took the one fused glass class that was available in Dallas at the time. And after that, I spent 3 years buying fusible glass and creating and ruining and trying again and just learning by trial and error. But the number of techniques available, especially for fused glass, and this is kiln fired glass, are just almost limitless. My artistic style. Well, in my Judaic work, I'm drawn to a couple of symbols, the shin and the flames in the Ner Tamid, and the tree of life. One of my favorite prayers is Eitz Chaim. The Torah is a tree of life for all who hold it dear, and I find that that symbology comes out in my artwork. My style changes over time. If I like to try new techniques. I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. I want to expand my horizons. I want to push the envelope. I want to see what else I can do. So as far as style, I may get an idea from an inspiration of a shape or a color, or there's a show coming up and there's a particular theme that I need to create a piece of artwork for. And I will think through the engineering of the piece and bring out glass and literally see what speaks to me, what sheets of glass, what colors go together. Think of the chemical compositions and how they'll react with each other and what I'm trying to accomplish and how and what form I want the piece to take, what texture do I want it to have. Fused glass is very technical. So that's my style.
Um,
Those three that I mentioned come up in my artwork a lot, whether I do that intentionally or not. They just come. Hebrew lettering, the serifs on the letters come out in my work. It's a beautiful form. It's that that swoosh, that curve. It has a seductiveness to me. When I grind glass and I grind it into those shapes, and when I fire it into those shapes, it's just beautiful. It speaks to me. The pieces that I submitted for the show is a menorah, and I believe I titled it Jacob's Coat Menorah. It is strips of glass that of varying colors that I stood on edge and fired together. So each piece is touching, and I built it out, and then it stands up, and that's the back of the menorah. I want them to look at my artwork and come away with their own ideas. I will title a piece of art something that I feel, but I want them to feel their own expression, their own ideas, get their own interpretation of the piece. The piece behind me is a piece on immigration, and it's called, I forgot what it's called. I'm going to say arrested potential, but I don't think I used the word arrested. But the potential of immigrants coming in, to me, is very important. And the stump in the middle is the group of immigrants who have been denied access. My family was immigrated here, as most people have. There are very few people who were here from the beginning. I want people to look at my work and see inclusiveness, not just Jewish work, but for all work. It is for everybody.